Welcome to Crypto Sapiens, a show that hosts lively discussions with innovative Web3 builders to help you learn about decentralized money systems, including Ethereum, Bitcoin, and DeFi. The podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and it is not financial advice. Crypto Sapiens is presented in partnership with Bankless DAO, a movement for pioneers seeking freedom from the limitations of the traditional financial system. Bankless DAO will help the world go bankless by creating user-friendly on-ramps for people to discover decentralized financial technologies through education, media, and culture. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Humpty Calderon. And today we are talking to Larry the Cucumber, co-founder at Pickle Finance. He shares the origin story of Pickle Finance, including the changes across the DeFi landscape since the protocol was launched. We also touch on memes, aligning incentives to users, and the value of interoperability between protocols. Let's get started.
I got into the space 2016, 2017, early days. Obviously, and like most people at the time, not in a full-time capacity. Just poking around Solidity, what programmable money, and reflecting on what programmable money actually means and what it can achieve. Fast forward to 2020, I've been working on projects with myself and friends all the time, but nothing in a full-time capacity. And then DeFi summer starts with a Yam Finance, and it's crazy how we saw that projects can bootstrap themselves, and in a non and as opposed to the ICOs, have a really flat and fair distribution of project assets and equity to the stakeholders, as and that vision aligned with me, and farming was fun, and so we decided to me and a couple buddies decided to create a new token, and the thing at the time were food coins. We came right around the time that sushi was here. Yam, of course. What other emojis? The harvest tractor, I suppose. And we saw an opportunity specifically to extend on yield aggregation, which Yearn, set the foundation for, and what they have done is quite amazing. And we've been able to carve our own little niche in yield farming, and there have been a lot of other protocols since who are attempting to do the same thing, but it's a very necessary product, and we aim to deliver value, and we have a lot of active users who we are able to engage for ideas, and that's part of the fun of what we do in DeFi and specifically yield farming, because there's no one right way to pursue yield, but so it's always a conversation, and that's what Pickle Finance, what part of the ethos of Pickle Finance is to in collaboration with our users, seek out the best yield, so as to help them maximize profits, make DeFi easier for them and other people.
I like that, making it easier. I mean, I think you're touching on something that we try to talk about here as regularly as possible, and it's how do we make this incredibly complex space more accessible, more easier to use, more in line with maybe some of the language and tooling that we're used to, while bringing them into this decentralized space, right? Where there's ownership, there's accountability, there's better yields, obviously, from the traditional systems that we're used to working with.
Yeah, totally.
I want to explore a little bit of what you touched on earlier, which was the early days of DeFi, which around 2016 went from maybe nothing to something, and then of course to the explosion of DeFi summer last year. From your experience, what did you see happening in DeFi, and how was that evolving, and how did that inspire you to develop Pickle Finance?
So actually, Pickle Finance, if for some people who have been here a longer time, we had an initial mission to stabilize stablecoins, and that was due to the DAI token constantly being off peg. But they changed their collateral requirements and included USDC, and so that was no longer such a big problem anymore. But we had always set out to do some sort of public good, and that really aligned with a lot of community members. And so we're always trying to um, approach DeFi, our development, our work with collaborative attitude. Now with other protocols, it's not so much unified under this stablecoin mission anymore, but that's sort of what drives us, working with other protocols, and to repeat myself, making things easier for everyone.
Well, that's good. Yeah, and so of course, food tokens. I remember my wallet at one point just looked like a menu at some restaurant that had way too many things that didn't necessarily taste good together. But that was fun though. I mean, again, going back to memes win the internet, right? Memes win crypto. I think that is relatable. That's fun. That's accessible. I think also there was an interoperability to them so that you could potentially use one or the other. And then eventually there was a bridge between them. And now you were kind of farming on this different scale, right? But at the same time, still having fun while experimenting with these new technologies. So that's good. So in terms of like making things easier, let's talk a little bit about Pickle Finance. How does it work, and what are some of the things that are built into it to make DeFi easy?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a typical user story. A user will deposit a certain Curve LP token, say STE, on Convex, for example. And Convex is used to, for those who aren't aware, to boost CRV yields because they have accumulated a bunch of locked CRV governance tokens, which entitles them to a boost. There are a number of reward tokens that are received for doing so, including CRV, CVX, the native convex governance token, and in some other cases, additional rewards such as 3 CRV tokens or spell tokens or whatever. So now you have 3 tokens that are potentially harvestable when a user wants to reap the rewards. But gas is often quite expensive, especially recently with the NFT boom, and to capture profits is a bit cumbersome, and for smaller wallets doesn't make sense to do too frequently. But those people also might not want the exposure to such like volatile reward tokens. Some people might, and that's great. But for the people who want to just compound their base asset, like I want more. I've deposited ETH LP tokens. I want more ETH. That's my final goal. They can come to us, and we will reinvest all those reward tokens, and it's socialized reinvestment. So they're not paying any of the gas costs. We are. And in doing so, they save on gas, on the manual labor, and they also get the benefits of compounding, which for higher APRs, the conversion to APY, because your base position is getting built over time, it can be quite significant.
Yeah, that's interesting, and certainly I think it is something that can be more rewarding, and touches on some of those things that you mentioned in terms of the gas expenses, to try to make things easier as well. That's incredibly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of just generally compared to other DeFi protocols, what are some of the things that maybe even including some of the things you already mentioned that Pickle is trying to solve in a unique way? Would it be this auto compounding then would be one of the more unique elements of the protocol?
I would have to admit that auto compounding is not novel, as Yearn did it first, and there's a bunch of other yield aggregators such as Harvest Finance, StakeDAO. There's a plethora of them. So a lot of it comes down to relationship building, and offering not necessarily unique, but figuring out what people want to put their assets in order to auto compound. And initially, we had started off with like stablecoin assets, like the Curve LP tokens I mentioned. But then it was discovered that there was a lot of enthusiasm for more degen things like Pool 2s, such as Alchemix's ALCX ETH pair, because the effects of compounding on APY on actual returns can be significant. It is significant in those higher than 100% APR scenarios. So that's been a sort of evolution. We've discovered our uses like this, and another aspect that we look to pursue is that I mentioned is the partnerships, because it's a two-way street. We benefit off of being able to compound their asset, and we provide more exposure to their project, forming our community of what other projects have on offer. Often inviting other people to come to our community to do AMAs, so they can so we can learn about them, and then in turn go on their servers to chat about Pickle. And so that's a cool part. A more technical endeavor we're pursuing right now is the urine back scratcher style product, which involves locking up a certain protocol's governance tokens to boost yields across our entire protocol. And in exchange, give them a tradable token. So Urine has done this with CRP, and we are currently developing and in the later stages of doing this for Frax Finance, and hopefully they'll be able to review, and we'll have the real product out soon, and that'll be a real big collaboration, us two protocols.
That is an interesting, I guess, evolution to DeFi that I wasn't aware of, in terms of these governance tokens, and I guess adding liquidity back to these projects so that they can earn yield, but at the same time still have some sort of like method of transmission.
Yeah. So Curve was the one who pioneered that model of vote locking their CRV, and only those people who lock CRV for varying lengths of time, up to 4 years, are able to hold voting power in their DAO governance. And so we were actually the first protocol to sort of adopt that model with Dill. Dill works largely the same way. Users can lock Pickles up for up to 4 years, and they get a couple benefits from doing so. One, they get to vote on governance proposals. Two, they get a share of protocol profits. 45% of everything we make goes back out to these holders. And three, they earn boosted Pickle rewards when they participate in the Pickle jars, which are our vaults, the auto compounding product. So that has worked really well for us. Over 50% of Pickles in circulation are actually locked up, because which is a good testament to how much people believe in us. It's pretty cool to see. But since then, a lot of other protocols have developed the same system. Some examples include Frax Finance. They have a lock. They're able to lock. Users are able to lock for up to 2 years on their platform. Spirit Swap over on Phantom does the same thing. Sushi is actually planning on launching Sushi. Largely the same thing, to be able to boost sushi yields.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? Because governance, first of all, is tricky, but also finding a way to like lock value into your protocol is just as tricky for a project. Because not necessarily talking about the financial aspect of it, but having too much of it in liquidity can also hurt, because there's a lot of it's difficult to kind of gauge, I guess, community activity, or maybe even like how much of that community you're locking up into the protocol. So it's interesting to hear that there's these mechanisms being experimented with in terms of locking them and enabling some sort of like additional voting power and additional incentives through a reward structure for these token holders. So kind of like tackling these two things.
Yeah, there's huge value capture, in that you get those with interest most aligned.
Yeah.
who would be the sole participator.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to trying to mature the token voting governance too a little bit,
Mhm.
and not just having, I guess, people have their cake and eat it too, where they can use these tokens, but also keep them, liquid in a market and trading them. You're really incentivizing people who are more, I guess, dedicated, maybe the wrong word, but yeah, with the protocol. And I think that is incredibly valuable in trying to find new and novel ways to really capture that community that is aligned with your project, to borrow your word there, and really trying to reward them with additional incentives and not just financial incentives.
Yeah, well said.
You were talking about users, and moments ago, in terms of like listening to your community and trying to see how you can reward them and engage with them better, creating I guess functionality in the protocol that serves their needs based on what they're interested in. Also, you were talking about partnerships that add value to the platform. um talk to me a little bit about these partners. What are some of the partners that are that you're working with over at Pickle Finance, and some of the ways that they are contributing to the project, or ways that you're both kind of adding value to each of your projects?
Yeah. The one of the ones I mentioned was Frax, where in general we facilitate the locking of their governance token, and it benefits us because we get boosted rewards for our users. It benefits them because they have more tokens locked up, and then another protocol, namely us, would be able to participate in their governance. And as protocol participant, you might get some benefits as opposed to individual users, um, which would be cool. I don't know how it actually works in practice, but ideally we could you know better each other by having large interests in each other, and working together in the most effective ways, and helping shape each other. But apart from that, other ways we look to collaborate are so um, lending platforms. Spell or Abracadabra has been a big one recently. Um, they use yield bearing collateral um, to be able to allow users to mint their stablecoin MIM, Magic Internet Money, and a very logical collaboration there would be for um, them to integrate a Pickle vault receipt token, and allow people to mint a stablecoin from their yield bearing asset. They already have a couple others of those, and we're in talks with other protocols, Abracadabra included, but others such as My Finance over on Polygon, um, who we would love to see integrate our uh, DAI jar, which produces automatic DAI yield of about 10%, um, and to see them allow users to use that collateral to mint their stablecoin would be awesome, because I see it as a win-win. It's hard to get that, like, such a stable stablecoin yield, um, and in using that, also be able to participate in other DeFi activities, namely borrowing, and so being it's very possible for us to build on other protocols, and for other protocols to build on us as a DeFi Lego, and that interoperability, composability is something we want to encourage. But a lot of it is also a marketing and communications endeavor to or sort of educate other protocols, or work with them, and help them in integrating us, and vice versa.
Yeah. And I do want to come back to that in terms of interoperability, but I wanted to just trace back a little bit. You were talking about jars. Just for clarification, jars are pools in the Pickle Finance protocol?
Yeah. Jars are the main product. They're the ones who, where you just deposit a certain asset, and then we help them auto compound. Put your tokens in a jar.
Okay, yeah, and it makes sense, right? Keep with the meme. That's awesome. So I recently saw a tweet from the Pickle Finance Twitter account, and it was talking about the Opolis jar.
Uh huh.
Walk me through that. Is that a partnership with Opolis? Or is that just that you've enabled that token or their token to be added to the jar?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. Opolis is a partner of ours. And are you aware of their platform?
I am, and I hope to have them on this show soon. I'm a big fan of what they're doing.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. So Pickle actually made a strategic investment in Opolis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so we work closely together to incorporate their services and promote their services in our amongst our members, our core team. And they recently came on, them and Metacartel, for an AMA, and shared all the cool things Opolis is doing. And I know several people who use it to automate or to provide structure to receiving crypto payments, which and for people not aware, Opolis is a payroll service and payroll and benefits service for sort of the Web3 worker who might not be receiving monthly pay stubs from their regular job, but Opolis provides that structure, that legal structure, and the benefits insurance for a very reasonable price. And I would have loved to go with them, but unfortunately, my country of residence doesn't isn't supported yet. But they do a great thing.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. So I think one thing that you're addressing here, and I think it's worth exploring a little bit further, is just working in a Web3 environment, right? So we're going from the traditional workspace, right, which is maybe you are going to college or getting a degree, you get hired, not necessary in that, in that way, but traditionally speaking, I think that's how it goes. And then you work at that job, you get a promotion through that job, you get insurance, et cetera, et cetera. In the Web3 space, a lot of that structure doesn't exist, and there's projects like, DeFi projects like Pickle Finance, there's NFT projects, there's DAOs, and, there's a lot of things that are still missing in, I guess, the employment architecture that services like Opolis can provide. In terms of like, DeFi and Web3, how do you think that can continue to evolve in the future? Looking at something like maybe integrating Opolis, not saying that you should or will, but these DAO tooling that are DAO tools or just Web3 tools, excuse me, that are being created. How do you think DeFi will continue to evolve and integrate, all of these different technologies that are getting built in this space?
I think it's as you mentioned much earlier that DeFi is still really hacky, and we're focusing on building and less so on HR and as you put it, the employment architecture. But that will be necessary, and Opolis I think is the first step towards that. Um, or so where where DeFi projects, smaller ones, bootstrap ones, don't have the resources to run their own HR department, Opolis can provide all that structure and architecture. Um, and yeah, I think in general, it's going to come. The space will mature, um, and and people will expect such services to be provided, right? Like to be able to file your taxes, and with certainty to be able to access health benefits, whatnot. But the space is still nascent, and it might not come for a year, but and that's fine because we're all focused on building, and that's the priority. But yeah, no, as it matures, the architecture and whatnot will come. Like all the supporting functions, I guess.
Cool. And so now to go back to talk about interoperability, since we kind of are addressing some of that now, how not just DeFi protocols, but the projects themselves can interoperate with, toolings that is getting developed for this space. What are some ways you think the interoperability of protocols will continue to evolve in the future? Maybe we can touch on like cross chain and cross protocol, and even cross membership.
Um, it's hard to that's really broad because uh, interoperability, even up to now, has seen limitless applications. Um, every DeFi protocol has the potential to be used as a building block or a Lego for another to build on. But I guess just are you thinking more specifically to Pickle, or what I've noticed as new interoperability or trends in DeFi?
Yeah, maybe broadly, and then more specifically, Pickle Finance.
Yeah, more broadly. Um,
And if you don't have an answer, that's fine.
no, yeah, no. We've noticed and I think a lot of people are probably aware too. The Olympus DAO protocol. They've recently introduced a new approach to liquidity. Are you aware of the project?
Just generally.
Yeah. So they have. So one aspect they have is Ohm, the the algorithmic token. But another one is their method of providing protocol liquidity, which is really interesting and is quite different from the traditional yield farming method, where individual users stake their LP tokens and receive the protocol token in return for that service of providing liquidity. What they do is called bonding, where users will provide Olympus with an LP token, say it's Pickle ETH, and then after a set maturity period, the user will receive in return the discounted Pickle tokens, and in such a way, it acts as a bond.
Interesting. I'll have to dive deeper into that because I hadn't heard of that, but that sounds like a different way of like using DeFi, I guess. So what's on the roadmap for Pickle Finance then?
It's some of the things I mentioned already were the tracks back scratcher. We're constantly working on more jars. Some of the sidechain stuff we're still working on, expanding on Arbitrum, which we've done recently to provide more jars. What else? Yeah, those are some of the big objectives right now. Expanding our farming opportunities to Uni V3, and yeah, those are some of the more immediate goals we have.
And that's great. What are some of the differences between, I guess, the current Uni V2 versus Uni V3 that you think are going to play a role in Pickle in the future?
It's hard to say. Uni V3 is slowly picking up. The adoption of Uni V3 is slowly ramping up. And I didn't think it'd actually be so fast because it's sort of a little more complicated for normal users to approach. But it certainly has benefits of capital efficiency with their concentrated liquidity, where users can provide liquidity in only a certain range and earn more fees on less capital. That's just a commentary on benefits of Uni V3 versus 2 in general. And for us, it's just sort of an engineering thing to work our existing code into this new paradigm.
That's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you'd like to learn more about Pickle Finance, go to pickle.finance and on Twitter at Pickle Finance. Thanks for listening to Crypto Sapiens. Please give us a follow, like, and a 5-star review wherever you enjoy your podcast. And stay tuned for our next discussion.